being on your desk.
Definitely, yes.
Call the meeting to order. Would everyone please stand and salute the flag? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we have roll call?
Counselor Pierce?
Here.
Counselor Warner?
Here.
Counselor Cartwright?
Here.
Counselor McCormick? Here. And Supervisor Witt?
Here. Okay, we'll go right into this public hearing on a zone change for the Sally Day property from R1 to R2. Yes.
My name is Kevin Conley. I chair the planning board, and I'd just like to take a moment and briefly review this. The applicant is requesting a zone change for approximately 18 acres of land located on Route 57. It's on the just south of the city of Fulton. They're requesting a zone change from R1 to R2. And what that does is allows for an increased density. Probably the reason why they're considering this is because there is some consideration on their part on possibly developing the property for subdivision purposes. And to be perfectly honest, in that area, in order to really develop a subdivision, you would probably need greater density than what is allowed in an R1 zone. The property, I think the applicant will probably discuss it later, but they're talking a package treatment plant. When you talk about infrastructure improvements, you need a certain amount of density to make development of the property feasible. I'd just like to briefly stress, though, that this is a zone change request. In no way does this actually involve development of the property. What we're here to discuss tonight is allowing the applicant the ability, a little bit more flexibility in the development of their property. If at some point the applicant plans on actually developing the property, they would at that time probably have to come back before the planning board for site plan approval or subdivision review. In either case, there would be public hearings involved in that, and the public would have a lot of time and a lot of opportunity to get involved in the development of the property. One of the questions that came in regarding this particular zone change, which the planning board itself has discussed a lot, is the concept of spot zoning. I think the majority of the board felt it didn't apply in this case because of the fact that very close by you have the Longley Brothers property, which is an industrially zoned property. Just on the other side, you have the former Miller property, which is also zoned industrial. The south of their property is DEC land. I believe north of their property is basically swampland. And to the west, you've got the State Barge Canal property. So really, it's not so much that that property by itself would be different from all other properties around it. There's kind of a menagerie of different types of property there already. The planning board, after careful review, did recommend to the town board to approve this zone change because of the fact that, let's be honest, we could use development in the township to stabilize the tax base, to try to bring greater taxable property into the township. And in the eyes of the planning board, people do have rights to do certain things with their property. And if people want to do something in a way which we felt would be a positive and an asset to the town, then we should at least give them the opportunity to give it further consideration. If you don't allow a person to even have the ability to consider something, they're not going to put any money into researching it and engineering drawings and stuff like that. So what happens tonight is by looking into this possibility of a zone change, you're allowing a person to at least go to first base. At least in their mind, hey, it can be done. So now they can at least do the investment to research, well, is it something we should do? Does it make economic sense? And then once they take that step and they decide that, yes, we want to do something like this, and we know that at least from a zoning perspective we can do something like that, they would then have to come back to the town again, specifically to the town board and the planning board, because now they're going to come to us with a specific plan, and then we can again involve the public, review it, and say, okay, let's do this in such a fashion that's safe, environmentally sound, and I think we've done fairly well in that in the past, and That's why, from this perspective, the planning board felt that this at least allowed this piece of property to be looked at from the potential view of possible development. Thank you very much.
Anyone else have anything on this? Yes.
Could you explain about what they do with water and sewer, stuff like that in the area? Anybody else around the area?
Can they explain? I don't think we have an actual plan of what's going to be done with the water in the sewage on that yet. Can you explain it?
Yes, what would be necessary would be to provide sewage treatment, either by contract with Fulton, which has not been investigated and would probably be pretty expensive considering the distance to it, and the other would be the installation of a sewage treatment plant. The property could not be developed without a sewage disposal system. A septic system would not work over there. It would also require city water. I think if anybody here lives along the river, you know that if you get down very deep where most large quantities of water is, it tends to be sulfury or brackish. So there is two avenues. First of all, a sewer or a water district would have to be established to tap into any municipal supply. There's two sources of water in the area. One is a raw water line, which comes from the Great Bear Springs and goes into the Fulton plant for treatment. And then there's also another water line up by the Miller property that is treated water. Here again, it's a matter of economics. If water is taken from a raw water source, that requires treatment under the direction and inspection of the health department and the state. It does require a licensed water plant operator. It has to be chlorinated the same as a municipal supply would be. So there would be, the only way the property could be developed would be with an approved supply of municipal water and or a municipal treatment plant or a private treatment plant set up. Personally, I've had experience with both. I do hold a license as a water plant operator, which almost any studious 8th grader could get, I think. It's nothing very technical. It's just a matter of measuring chlorine. If a sewage plant is put in, this is a totally different story. This is a very tightly regulated. You have to have a senior license. I think it's a grade 4, which would be required for that. And that is a true professional to operate a treatment plant. So part of the cost considerations would be initial cost to be able to go to an existing plant or the development. But either way, it definitely has to have a municipal water supply. If there was interest, a water district could also be set up whereby the plant could be operated by a water district, which has to be supported by the people within the district that use it. And this would be an avenue to look at, as well as the sewage disposal. A sewer district could be established so that others could tie into it. But either way, it's got to be, there's no septic tanks to wells, so there's no way possible to do that.
Yes.
The reason I live in the country is so I don't have to have a city water bill and a city sewer bill and have a big building across the road from me. And I'm against this 100%. And I don't understand how you can change the zoning when you don't even know what they're going to build.
Anyone else?
My name is Norm Brewer. I live on 9 Crescent Drive.
I certainly oppose this change of zoning. No evidence has been presented tonight to convince me that this zoning should be changed.
Anyone else? Yes.
Just food for thought. I live at 21 Crescent Lane, and the water line that he's talking about that comes from Great Bear is right in my backyard. I checked on that when I built my new home in 1990. The city of Fulton will not and said cannot let you use that line like he said because it's not chlorinated, but they also said it's a high pressure line. There's no way to, they told me there was no way to regulate it down. If this is heading toward a direction where it's going to be another River Glen Mall situation with water and sewer, I mean, we need to check all aspects of it before we even decide what we're going to do, I think. I mean, I'm not even allowed to cut a tree in my property right now. So, and that's through the town of V0lney. So, and I pay $3,000 a year for land taxes, and I have no road frontage. So I don't know where this is going to, what direction this is going to take us in a tax break, because any industry or any factory or anybody else that's coming to the town of V0lney, they've given them a tax break in the beginning to start out with, and it's never helped any of the public in the town. That's why we're in trouble with millers like we are.
Yes.
I'd just like to mention, 'cause I've been involved in some projects on the Crescent Drive. The only thing that this would allow is about the same density that presently exists on Crescent Drive. A lot of the homes on Crescent Drive are, when you're talking about frontage, are less than what's allowed in the R1 zone. And the only thing this is going to do, this doesn't allow hookup to waters, it doesn't allow hookups to sewer. It's a whole different ballgame. All this does is basically give them the opportunity to develop, if they choose to, at a density that's permitted in an R2 zone. An R2 zone is like what you've got in the other subdivisions that exist in the town of V0lney. In the Glen 2, it just allows for more of a half acre. They can't even do that if, unless they do work some kind of infrastructure improvements. So all this is doing, this doesn't allow for industry, this doesn't allow for factories, it basically allows for residential development. It could allow for a two-family home or a condominium at some point, but that's all. That's all it does, and that's, we thought about this too. I don't live too far from there myself, okay? And basically, we've got, if you go down 57, there's a lot of sections of 57 where you've got a greater density already than what is allowed in an R1 zone. That's because it was pre-existing. And that's the only thing that this would allow. And I've been on the planning board for about 6 or 7 years, and I sit in as many hearings where people are saying, what are you doing restricting what we can do with our property? And then, so you try to work around it. And to me, when somebody's got 18, 19 acres of land and they're willing to consider the possibility of investing a considerable amount of money in that land, and I've been in on the hearings where we're talking not just shoving a bunch of houses along the road. We're talking, this would be something that would probably, if it ever happened, which is a long ways off, could be something pretty nice. Could be something pretty nice. We're not talking cheap. We're not talking just, we're talking something that could really enhance things a little
But
bit.
you do have a general idea then what they want to do. The way you're talking, you're acting like maybe they're going to do this, maybe they're going to
Well,
do that.
they can't even consider it. It can't even be thought about unless there's some type of zoning adjustment made.
But
Basically, for any kind of...
how many projects have been started, even in New York State itself, and it's always reflected back on the people that pay taxes? Somehow, some way, we absorb something into our taxes because something was missed or left out, or here we go, water and sewer's got to be brought in. Well, we'll build the buildings and we'll pay the taxes, but the town can bring the water and septic in.
Well, no, that would be something. In fact, I think we just had a water septic both go up, right? If we're talking about a water or sewer district, then we probably have to go for a vote.
I'm just worried about taxes, that's all
Yeah,
I'm worried
well,
about.
you know,
I pay
understand what
way
you're
too
saying.
much now.
Mine took as big a jump as yours did, I'll tell you, and I'm interested from that perspective too. But there's kind of like two kinds of development that you want to see. You want to see it positive or negative. And the only thing I'm going to tell you, based on the projects that I've looked at, as your representative on the planning board, this is more positive than negative. I mean, this would, in my opinion, she's got a right to do certain things with her property. And I think that what they've discussed, and basically it's all been discussion, I think would be a positive move. That's my personal opinion. I mean, I can understand the concerns, because my property, the house I got was looked upon, before I bought it, they wanted to put a truck stop there, you know, and I can see that with houses on both sides. That's not what we're talking about here.
And I'm worried about property values in the area too, you know. Property values increase around the area, but yet they're increasing, but the resale value in the town is nothing. I had my house on the market last year for 7 months. My house is assessed for $128,000. I had that house on the market for 90 grand and didn't have one offer. I'm worried about property values going up too in the area, exceeding the limits of where you can't even resell, and it's going to raise everybody's taxes in the area. This is all considerations that we have to realize before we even make a step. I'm just letting you know, I know what happens in the long run.
I live in that country and I want it to stay that way.
I wonder if I might address some of these concerns, because they're all very valid ones. First of all, there's two things that are being considered. One would be the building of condominiums, and the other single-family detached housing. As far as taxes, Mrs. Day is well aware, because her tax bill is a little over $12,000 a year, and she has a 50-odd-year-old home and 18 acres of field and woods right now. The condominium portion of it, if this ever does, and as Mr. Connick puts out, there's a long time between here and reality. We don't know if economically it can do. But the condominiums would not be up by the road. It would be just make no sense in the world. The thing that would sell condominiums would be the river frontage, and that's where they would be built. The single families would be up on the front part ahead of the woods, and you're certainly familiar with the property. They would not be developed, highly unlikely, let's put it that way, you never say never, that they would be developed fronting on 57. The likelihood is that the screening would be put in to cut down on the traffic noise that goes by there, so they'd be facing the inward side. As far as taxes, as they say, the property is currently, all tax combined, around $12,000 a year, and that would certainly go up substantially, particularly with condominiums, because there would be a density, but not a density up near the road, so that it could only contribute to it. I have never, and I've been active in the real estate and development business for pretty close to 50 years now, and I've never known tax concessions to be given to a residential. An industry that's going to employ several hundred people, they get them, but there's no chance of subsidies on a residential subdivision, so it could only enhance the tax base and not take away from it. Again, sewers, water, and like that, there'd be nothing mandatory for anyone to participate in that. That would be an option, just like anybody in the area could opt to have their property rezoned to a greater density. Obviously, as a broker representing Mrs. Day, I naturally have an interest in this, and but again, as Mr. Connick pointed out several times, we don't know if this is economically feasible, and it costs quite a bit to find that out. And it could very well be that it'll never get any place, but we just can't invest.
Can I ask a question? We all
Sure.
got a letter on this in the
Right.
mail. Now, what about the boat dock and the marina that they want to put in down there?
That would be,
Who's going to benefit from that? The ones that live in the condo, or is it going to be to the public?
ideally, we would like to be able to interest the Barge Canal Company to develop a marina, lease land out for a marina down there, not just public work. That's a big investment, and I don't know whether that could be or not. That would be an ideal, it would be a great attraction, but again, economic element of that.
Now, what about the highway on 57? I mean, on a Friday and Saturday night, when them races are going on, our house is like all over the place.
That's why I say the houses would not be up close to the road or facing, because I know what that traffic is.
No, I'm talking
Traffic that
the
we
traffic
already have.
Right.
is bad enough,
You
but what
build
if
something like that over there, what do you think's gonna happen then?
they're going to have to put street lights
Don't you think it's
in
gonna
for
be
people
worse?
coming out of there?
Don't you think it's gonna be?
There's going to be additional, but it won't be a concentrated traffic such as you have going to a racetrack where it's hundreds of people, maybe several thousand are going there at one time. Yes, if you wind up with 50 additional families, you know that there's going to be 75
Okay, then we got
automobile.
another new highway they put in, so who's going to pay for the upkeep of the highway? It's going to be all the taxpayers in the area.
No, I don't think
It's-
that
Big tax.
Yeah.
that's going to contribute too much to the deterioration of that, but again, I'm not an expert in that field. However, as I say, it may not be, but I do believe that the addition is going to be positive rather than
Well,
negative.
don't get us wrong, we're not here to oppose a nice-looking project and nice-looking buildings and stuff. This town is in such stress with taxes from, like mine took a $600 jump and one leap, and who knows what January's gonna bring. We're all scared of hearing about any projects going on until the taxes are,
It's projects like this that do increase it. There's no way that the town board, this town board or any town board is going to vote to subsidize, a private capitalist venture, that's for sure.
Right.
And again, all of this has to be approved later on, too.
But tonight we're just letting you know where we're gonna stand on the tax.
I don't blame you one bit. I'd be concerned about that, too, if anything that's going to affect my
I
neighborhood.
feel that I'm even lower than middle class for what I make and trying to pay my taxes and worried about an increase again is just unbelievable.
Well, hopefully it would, in the overall budget of the town and the county, it's not going to be big, but it all helps, I guess. But it certainly won't be subsidized, that we can guarantee you.
Anyone else? To adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Second.
Counselor Pierce,
Aye.
Counselor Moyer,
Right.
Counselor Carver,
Aye.
Counselor McCormick. Aye. Supervisor
Aye. Okay, we'll call our regular town board meeting to order. We'll dispense from roll call. Announcements? Yep. Let me go to you. Okay, last night, or yesterday on the vote for the sole assessor, probably most everyone knows it by now anyways, but the vote was 162 against and 171 for, so we will be appointing an appointed assessor starting January 1st. We have several applications here. We haven't had a chance today to contact the people to get them in here so that we can interview and decide who it would be, but we will be doing that in the near future. Any other announcements? Committee reports. Planning board?
Good evening. The December meeting of the planning board was held on Wednesday, December 3rd. 4 members were present. Gary Standard was absent. The board discussed the progress of the Doty Oil project located on Route 3. Right now, the applicant is reworking the plans to make better provisions for parking. They had an initial meeting with us. We were reviewing their plans and made some suggestions, and they went back and they're looking at them now. And I think they'll probably be resubmitting the plans in January or February. The board also discussed the progress of the day application for a zone change for their parcel located on Route 57. There were no particular resolutions passed at this meeting, and the next meeting of the planning board is tentatively planned for Wednesday, January 7th at 7 p.m. If there are people who plan on attending this meeting, they might want to contact the town clerk just to confirm the date, because that's the start of a new year, reorganization. But at this time, we're looking at January 7th as the meeting date. Also, I'd just like to say, I guess Sylvan is resigning as our Planning and Zoning Board Secretary. She's done a great job. She did a great job the first time. She did a great job this time, so I'm hoping a couple of years from now, maybe she'll come back again. But we're going to miss her. And I want to wish all the board members a Merry Christmas. And Bill, I want to wish Bill the best of luck. It's been good working with you, and we're going to miss you. So, happy holidays, everybody. Thank you very much.
Zoning Board.
The Zoning Board of Appeals held its regular meeting here at the Town Hall at 7 p.m. That was last night. We've been in discussion on a possible changing our meeting nights. Our board members, James Hinman, has had to his work nights changed. He's no longer able to make the Wednesday night meetings. The board has decided to wait until the new board members have been selected for next year and let them decide what night they will meet. There was no other business before the board at this time. And Barbara would like to take the time to thank both the town board and the zoning board for the cooperation that she's received through the year and on the business that has come before the zoning. It has been a pleasure to work with everyone, and she would like to also say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone. And this is from Bart Foster, who couldn't be here tonight.
Are they still going to meet on the 14th? Or that
Pardon me?
change?
Pardon me?
Are they still going to meet on the 14th?
They are this time.
They are this time?
Code enforcement.
For the month of November, we did 2 mobile home permits, 2 additions, and 2 accessory buildings for a total of 6 permits. Total fees collected $366. We did 1 certificate of occupancy. We did 26 new construction inspections, 4 fire safety inspections, and 10 zoning inspections for a total of 40 inspections.
Dog control.
For the month of November, I received 103 calls or complaints. 1 dog was adopted out, 0 dogs redeemed, 3 dogs were euthanized, 4 dogs were held at the kennel this month. There's 0 dogs at the kennel at the present time. 7 dogs were reported lost, 3 dog bites, 2 of them were real bad. Dogs bit people in the face, and why people have ugly dogs that I will never understand. I traveled 720 miles this month, 620 miles. And the state come in and inspected the kennel late last month, and everything's in good shape. The kennel and paperwork.
Recreation. Historian. Highway. Thank you.
14 days machine maintenance, 4 days road maintenance, 1 day driveways, 9 days plowing and sanding, 6 days removing beaver dams, and 2 days repairing signs. The wages for November of 1997, $22,748.41. Materials for November, $7,279.10. And the total expenditures, $30,027.51, and that's submitted by Bob Kirschman. Highway Superintendent.
Old business.
What's the update on that property we were discussing last month?
Hasn't decided really which way he wants to go. He wanted to go with some shrubbery type fencing, but in order to do that, he would have to wait till spring in order to put it up. Realistically, he couldn't do much with a fence before late this fall anyways, because until we found out whether or not the drainage was going to work, you couldn't very well put a fence up and then have to tear it down to redo the drainage. It does appear that the drainage system that they put in is going to work. And I don't know that, in talking with a couple of different attorneys, they said it was pretty shaky as far as actually going in and making them put a fence up, given the fact that he was there before zoning. But Mr. Padney does seem to want to cooperate and put some type of barrier up there. But at the present time, I said he was, when he talked to me before, and still is leaning toward a shrubbery type barrier with some, additional landscaping.
Any other old business? New business? I will look at. Petitions. Okay, we'll move into resolutions.
Resolution 97-234, approval of regular meeting minutes and special meeting minutes. Move to approve the regular meeting minutes of November 13, 1997, and the special meeting minutes of November 18, 1997, having been distributed without reading. I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Counselor Pierce?
Aye.
Mr. Warner?
Aye.
Mr. Hartley?
Aye.
Mr. McCormick?
Aye.
Supervisor Leonard?
Aye.
Resolution 97-235, transfer of funds. Move to authorize the supervisor to transfer the following funds. From account DA 5130.2 garage machinery equipment for $158.24 to account DA 5110.4 general repairs contractual for $158.24. From account A 1990.4 contingency for $421.64 to account A 9060.8 employee benefits for hospitalization and medical insurance, $421.64. From account A 1990.4 contingency for $99.94 to account A 1670.4 central printing and mailing for $99.94. And from account A 1990.4 contingency for $893.26 to account A 1620.4 buildings and grounds for $893.26.
I'll second it.
Counselor Pierce?
Aye.
Counselor Warner?
Aye.
Mr. Hartley?
Aye.
Mr. McCormick?
Aye.
Supervisor Leonard?
Aye.
Motion is carried.
Resolution 97-236, payment of vouchers. Move to authorize the supervisor to pay vouchers 365 through 394 general fund in the amount of $12,027.12, and vouchers 293 through 317 highway fund in the amount of $7,279.10 from designated accounts.
I'll second it.
Counselor Pierce?
Aye.
Mr. Warner?
Aye.
Counselor Hartley?
Aye.
Counselor McCormick?
Aye.
Supervisor Leonard?
Aye.
Motion is carried.
Resolution 97-237,
In the matter of the zoning ordinance, Town of V0lney, an ordinance further amending the zoning map to rezone the district, the Town Board of the Town of V0lney and the County of Oswego, State of New York met in regular session at the Town Hall in the Town of V0lney, located at RR 8, Town of V0lney, County of Oswego, State of New York, on the 13th day of November 1997 at 7 p.m. The meeting was called to order by the Dennis Lockwood Supervisor, and the following was present, namely Dennis Lockwood Supervisor, Jesse Warner, William Pierce, Peggy McCormick, Gregory Hartlaff, council people. The following resolution was moved, second, and unanimously adopted, whereas an ordinance has been introduced before the board to wit, an ordinance further amending zoning map, zoning district entitled zoning ordinance of the Town of V0lney. The text, which is as follows: rezone parcels owned by Miss Sally Day located Route 57 South, Town of V0lney, of 17.47 acres from R1 to R2. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of V0lney, County of Oswego, State of New York, shall hold a public hearing in the matter of the adoption of aforesaid ordinance, and that such hearing shall be held at the Town Hall of the Town of V0lney, located at RR 8, Route 6, Town of V0lney, New York, on the day of December 11th, 1997 at 7 p.m., and be further resolved that the Town Clerk have noticed such public hearing by publication of a notice in at least one newspaper circulated in town specifying the time, when, and the place where such public hearing be held, and in general terms describing the proposed ordinance. Such notice shall be published once at least 5 days prior to a public hearing. An ordinance amending the zoning map district entitled zoning ordinance, Town of V0lney, be it ordained and enacted by a town board of the Town of V0lney, County of Oswego, State of New York, as follows. Resolved that the proposed ordinance amendment has been referred to the Town of V0lney Plan Board for its recommendation, and during review sent the application to the Oswego County Plan Board pursuant to Article 12-B, Section 239, L&M of the State of New York General Municipal Law. Returned on October 8th after review with a recommended denial without prejudice. Thereon, the V0lney Town Plan Board overruled and passed a resolution on November 5th, 1997, recommending to grant approval of the proposed zone change application. Resolved that the V0lney Town Board, after careful review, that A, the V0lney Town Board agrees with the October 8th, 97 Oswego County Plan Board recommendation of denial without prejudice. B, in type 1 seeker needs to be submitted for review. C, no engineering impact to fire protection, schools, etc. studies were submitted. Resolved that zone change request by Miss Sally Day, petition to the Town of V0lney Board dated August 12, 1997, be denied without prejudice. I move it.
I'll second it.
Counselor Pierce?
My discussion?
I'm looking for discussion.
Well, some of the things are stated here. The Town Board hasn't shown in the minutes that we reviewed this and discussed it at the town meetings. And under court case, and I think it's short, you have to consider all the uses that can happen in R1 zone. R1 zone don't just pertain to housing units or anything else. You could also have a church or other place of worship, a private, academic, or a school. You could have a day nursery, you could have a hospital, you could have a nursing home, you could have a cultural facilities, a library, art directory, museum. You could have a golf course, a country club. You could have a public utility or transportation use. You have a non-profit club or recreational use. Or you could have recreational businesses. So we have to take a look at what could happen in that zone if it was changed. At present, there's no definite plan. It's only a concept plan that was presented to us. And the concept plan only talks about the benefit to the applicant of the single piece of development. They use an example as a city, the Oswego Code. The Oswego Code, it has nothing to do with zoning, but the concept, we cannot go by with that. There's no guarantee. I don't know if Mr. King or Representative King? King?
Pardon?
Mr. King?
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you're a lawyer, if you're a real estate broker or not, but without a specific plan, we can't. We don't wonder, this don't go through the zone change is already zoned, and somebody else might buy it and put something in there that maybe the town really don't want. So without no specific plan, no engineering studies and that, court cases have stated that what is important in adoption of zone change is that the record reflect that the board give careful consideration to the needs of the community as a whole, and determining that changes in development plan are appropriate. The town board cannot escape the responsibility because no specific plan has been reviewed. The town board must evaluate the potential impact of the zone change in a detailed, systematic fashion required by state law. Consideration must be given to a variety of environmental impacts. A type 1 review would cover a lot of them questions. Plan board, reading the plan board minutes, they talked about spot zoning. It's hard to change zoning for one spot for one person without explaining what the whole benefit is to the community without a plan. The local court case here in the zone change here, on the plan board, we granted, and the town board granted a zone change to them all, feeling that even though it was spot zoning, it was going to benefit the town of V0lney. But in hindsight, after we approved everything, it was the owners who petitioned for annexation that benefited and not the town. And another thing that is not in the plan or anything is fire protection in our community. And one of the things that upsets myself personally, going through this annexation thing, sitting at the court case down in Oswego during the hearings and everything, the city of Fulton, during the hearing, the city mayor and the Fulton fire chief stated that the volunteer fire and mutual services are inadequate to provide fire protection to the development of one-story buildings. We got a concept here of maybe a 5-story building. Further, 3 Oswego County judges agreed to that. And it went further to the appellate division in Rochester, and them 3 judges also said that the volunteer mutual fire services are inadequate. For what reason, I don't know, because I myself think that if it wasn't for the rural volunteer services that we have in our state and our community, I don't know where these cities would be if it wasn't for our volunteers. Because the city of Fulton, if you talk to any of them people, they're understaffed, but they rely on your mutual aid for any fire they have in the city. But for them to go through an annexation hearing and you listen to stuff, it upset me. I don't know how it affects the firemen or anybody else, but it affects me to think that laws are funny. Not funny, but whatever. They also questioned the police protection. The New York State Police and Oswego County sheriffs were inadequate to provide police protection to that mall. I don't understand the reasoning, but they're the ones that declared that. I don't know how our firemen, what they're saying, and what we have to review here, I have to go along with what they're saying as far as the legal aspect. Until them questions are answered, and they can be answered in a type 1 secret process, because for a study on the schools, a study on the fire, the water, like that, the town is at risk of changing the zoning because we don't know for sure what might go in there. You know, it's nice to say you have a concept, but what happens if you don't? You decide to sell the land. You know, how does it benefit the community?
Well, I believe that was explained by Mr. Connolly. Any development must be approved by the planning, or recommended by the planning board, and approved by the town board, as I understand it. So,
site plan approval is not done by the town board.
Excuse me?
The site plan is not approved by the town board. It's only approved by the planning board. With a parcel marina or something like this, located near a critical environment area and everything, by declaring that a negative impact on a short form, you're not really going to an in-depth study on what could happen in that area. So it leaves, there's too much left open here.
Well, of course, as far as a marina goes, that would be controlled completely by, well, the Thruway Authority. I believe they have a separate corporation set up, but you can't do anything of that nature without it being approved by them. Also, the land immediately adjacent to it on the north is leased to the Department of Conservation for a boat launch, and the other side is of course, the bird sanctuary, and all of those factors are going to be considered before any permit for such a venture would go in. We're looking at, in this plan, for an optimum, perhaps not all of it is going to be feasible. That's the big thing. We don't know how much of it is feasible, and these studies are particularly expensive. A building permit, of course, has to be issued. I'm not certain as to what degree of control the town has. I certainly would think that there's something as far as approving any kind of a development of any size. To get a building permit for a house, that's one thing, but again, I'm not an expert on town law. I don't know what control. It would seem logical that the permitting process could eliminate anything that would not be acceptable. I guess it's kind of like a chicken and the egg situation. What comes first? Without knowing that it is possible, from a zone standpoint, it's virtually impossible to justify the expenditure necessary to find out if it's even feasible. And, you know, that's considering the economic conditions and like that, it's a pretty good gamble, no matter how you look at it. There would have to be a demand. You don't know if there'll be a demand until you've done detailed surveys. You don't know whether it's financially feasible until the cost of water, sewer, and all of the infrastructure that goes into it. All of these are pretty expensive things to determine. And without having any inkling at all as to whether it's even possible, there's just no way you can justify making these expenses. I guess maybe I just assume that everything would have to come back to the town board for approval sooner or later. This is something the town board is going to have to weigh the pros and cons on. That's all I can say. I know that it would not be feasible for us to go any farther without a zone change. And by the same token, the town board has got a responsibility to the residents of this town.
Just like on the mall, they were industrial. They did all the planning, they did all the things, they got their lawyers, they got their engineers, they did everything. And then they come to, for all the signed, sealed prints and everything, they come before the planning board, they had everything all done. Any questions that we had, the town almost couldn't turn them down because every legal aspect, any question we had, they had the answer, you know? So there was no way, in a way, at that time, and they did all the upfront work, and people say, what's fair is fair. Why do you penalize something like the mall development, doing all that work, and then somebody else comes in and says, well, maybe I'm going to do this. You know, you hear a lot of things over the years on different reasons by people when they apply for things. But one of the things that we have to protect is that we do a thorough review on this stuff before we make any decisions. And one of the things...
Sitting where you're sitting, I'd be thinking very strongly about that too, so I certainly have no argument with that thinking. I don't know how...
The mall, well, from what I understand is that when they were offered the sewage and the water, they had turned it down or they didn't want it from this town, and they ended up getting it from the city. They made that contract. That's one of the reasons why we lost the mall, or why the town did, is because they had these municipalities with the city. I think what this board is asking for, before we do a zone change, and if we do a zone change and let's say you don't build this and somebody else wants to build something, we can always probably turn it down, or we could also get into a court case where we've changed the zoning for the purpose for commercial, and now we say, well, no, you can't. We may end up in some kind of litigation arguing over why did we change it in the first, just for a concept. We also owe it to these people that if their water, it has to be water run down to there, and there's going to be a water district, how we're going to get the water there, who's going to pay for it. These are some things that really need to be considered before we, make a zone change for a commercial.
Well, of course, for the town to expend any money, and it's not contemplated that they would, unless the general public were going to participate. If there were 10 people in the area that wanted to participate in the sewer district or water district, they would be the only ones that would be, participating on the cost as well. I don't know. I'm not an attorney, so I don't know whether it's possible to grant a zone change based on a specific proposal, residential, condominium, or not. There's no problem with that as far as I'm concerned. My own thought is, I know how much a sewage treatment plant costs because I just got through building one for a much larger population than would be involved in here. I'm quite sure it would cost more than $160,000 to get to the city of Fulton sewers. Water, there is an alternative. There is I understand, a water district in the town already that could be expanded to bring water down there. So again, we're not dependent on Fulton for water. If that was a more feasible way to do it and they were willing to sell it, fine. I can also, I don't really see the parallel between this property and Fulton. They were immediately adjacent, I guess, to the city line. They're not that familiar with it, whereas we are not. The town of V0lney extends quite a ways. I don't know if the city could annex state-owned property, which they would have to do. I doubt if they have that authority. But I don't know. It seems like those protections could be built in there as far as the usage.
They annexed 481.
Pardon?
They annexed 481. That's state property, and they annexed that, so that must answer your question.
Like I say, that's completely out of my line. Back here too.
On the fire department end of it, I don't know if Dan Russo remembers me, but I was in the fire department for 7 years as a volunteer. When you're talking a 5-story building, that's definitely going to impact the town, because I don't believe, unless we have bought one, that we do have a truck adequate to reach that area of the building. So that's a definite impact right there in the town.
We have members of the board that research that end of it, whether it's needed one or mutual aid is good enough.
Right, but once again, Miller's is on an automatic mutual aid to Fulton. I don't know if that's going to be an impact either.
Well, our concern is we're talking about going from an R1 to an R2, which you get smaller lots, and the only way R2 can be developed is with municipal water and sewer. And then you've got to figure out where it's going to come from. The closest water is the Owens Road Water District. It's a little over a mile away when it comes to that. Then you got the cost. You get into engineers and everything. It would be nice if we had plans to see the infrastructure, what they're talking about.
They would even help all of us.
The detailed units. Usually we get plans. I mean, yeah, even for the hospital, we made the zone change, but we had plans. We knew that we were going to have a water district, but we had plans what was going in there.
Me, myself, I believe anything can be changed in a zone as long as you know where you're going.
Well, the other thing is, if you change from R1 to R2, then the people decide not to do anything with it. Then it's going to be tough to sell unless the people buying it are willing to spend the money for water and sewer.
Yes.
I would mention a couple things. One, R2, it's 1 acre lots unless they have some type of municipal water or sewer. So they could still develop 1 acre lots in an R2 zone if they can't get the water or the sewer. The other thing I want to mention, just a couple things regarding the shopping plaza, which was a real disaster. Right from the start, the plans were to get water and sewer from the city of Fulton. The problem was the mayor, once they got to the point where they were signing the dotted line, the mayor at the time determined that they're not going to expand their water or sewer to anybody unless they annex them into the city. I don't think, and I was involved at the start on that, I don't think the developers had some conspiracy going or anything. They were just about as surprised as we were when the city turned around and said, well, we're going to give you the water and the sewer, but now you got to become part of the city. That was a strategy on the part of the mayor at the time. Then the town came around and said, well, look, we can provide you water and sewer, and they did look into it. The problem was it would have involved a pumping station, it would have involved a water tank, and the cost was just so prohibitive. It was just crazy, but it was something that was looked into. I got to respectfully disagree with Bill on one thing. You're going to rezone parcels of land industrial, or you'll rezone parcels of land commercial, and you can't tell me that you're going to know what's going in there, because at the time we rezoned the Miller Brewery property industrial, a lot more property than just the Miller Brewery property was zoned industrial. And you didn't know what was going into the other stuff. You just said, well, that area is conducive to that type of development. And that's what, if you look at the master plan, it says that the property bordering a municipal area should be considered as a higher density of development than as you go further away from the city. The only other thing I wanted to add, and how this goes, it would have to, if he decided to do a water district, it would go back before the town board. If he decided to do a water sewer district, which I don't think he's going to do, it would have to go back before the town board. You're talking an 18-acre zone change under seeker. That is not a type 1 action. We went through every type 1 step on that. It does not cross the threshold as a type 1 action. But if he came before the town board, if he came before the planning board to develop a subdivision, that would have been a type 1 action. And if he ever does that, he would have to then do a type 1 seeker search. But what we're looking at is a zone change, and a zone change of 18 acres did not cross the threshold as a type 1 action under seeker. Otherwise, we would have required him to do it before we ever would have made a recommendation to him. But it did not cross that threshold. I also want to state that the major complaint that the county had, one of the things was the pathway. They were talking a walkway between, they're trying to build. And the commitment was made by the applicant that no matter what happened, if they ever did develop that property, the walkway would be preserved and they would make arrangements for that. So, I just wanted to mention a couple things, because if we thought it crossed the threshold as a type 1 action, we would have required it. But when you're looking at a zone change, it doesn't. If they come back with a project, that would be another seeker review, and then that would have required, that would require a type 1 action.
What I'm looking at, Kevin, is a zone change here with no plans for infrastructure. And every zone change we've done, it's been, whether it's been subdivisions or for the mall, we had infrastructure plans come in with it, even with the hospital.
I don't think the hospital plans came until afterwards, right? They knew they were going to have to do something, but they were looking at 4 or 5 different options. And once they got the okay to do the hospital, then they really spent the money on the engineering. The engineering drawings didn't come in.
They didn't know which way they were coming from for the water.
No, I'm not here to, we're just bouncing discussion around, but I don't believe they really spent the money on the infrastructure until they got the site plan okay to do the hospital. Then they spent the money and started looking into which way to go on water and sewer, But the idea is, I think before they're going to spend that kind of money, they wanted to know they could do the project, or at least have the opportunity to do the project.
I think that's all we're doing here is
Giving the developer an opportunity to at least go another step. But, so,
Well, I have a note here that 2 of the board members, and I think I'll put my name on there too for the 3rd, would like to table this so we can discuss it more. Because maybe there's more information that we need on this.
Draw my second.
Whatever you want to do.
You make the motion to table?
Okay, I'll make a motion that we table this until we receive for more information on it.
I'll second it.
Mr. Jesse.
Yes.
May I compliment your gentleman in the blue shirt on the items that he has brought out complaining against this resolution? Fire protection, water, sewage, traffic congestion.
Counselor Pierce,
Aye.
Counselor Warner,
Aye.
Counselor Carter,
Aye.
Counselor McCormick,
Aye.
Supervisor Lockwood,
Aye. I think so.
Hey, Kevin, after the meeting this evening, I'll give you a list of 7 or 8 thresholds that covers type 1.
When? No, the wind's always fine.
Huh?
63.
You got 62 days to vote on it.
There's three different times, 60, 62, and 63. Okay, we will contact you as far as when we're going to be doing this. We'll make it public. We will be making an announcement on this later.
If there's any further information you can provide our board with, it would be very helpful on this. If you've got anything else, any more plans or ideas or...
I mean, I basically don't know the legal aspect of a lot of this either when it gets into whether we could do this, a zone change solely for that operation, and if that didn't fly, then the zone didn't fly with it. You know, I don't know. We'll definitely have to contact our attorney on that, I'm sure.
And we do know this is the time of the year to have all your planning done, so if the weather breaks, you can start something.
It's a great idea, and it would be a great thing to have in account, but we need more information.
Any other public comment? Okay, I'd like to introduce some people here. We have Clyde Osborne, which is our county legislator presently, right?
2 more days.
Okay, we have Kim Seeger back there. She's our county legislator. We have Carl Rusaw over here. Will be our new county legislator starting the first of the year. And hiding way in the back is right where they always sit is our new highway superintendent, Ray Benoski. He'll be starting the first of the year. And over here with a big smile is Mark Jaquin. He'll be sitting up here starting the first of the year.
Mark.
Any other public comment? Yes.
Just one thing on their situation up there in 57 that I can pay to the question that come up to me. Can they do their own package plant and their own water and not have to involve the rest of the area? I mean, if the rest of the area come to the town board with a petition and wanted the water,
That's a different story.
that's a different story. But if they could do that circumstance on their own, it wouldn't affect the other people at all, right?
No, it would come-
If it borders or contiguous to DEC or state parkland, critical environment area or something like that, they have to be, anything with 10 or more units has to be hooked to public water and public sewage at the time of habitation.
Right.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is,
Yeah, but
if
that's
they
not
did their
public.
own
That's not a
thing.
public thing. That's a private tank on their farm. I mean, on their land.
Right.
There's
So
not a
the-
public municipal
the
works.
Surrounding people, these people here that are concerned about having to hook to it, they wouldn't have to.
No,